Listen, life's all about leveling up. Whether you're handling business on the field or kicking it in your zone, you like to celebrate with cigars that match the moment. That's why you should link up with Famous Cigars to bring you a wild deal. Right now, you can grab 8 premium cigars for just $8. You heard that right. 8 top-rated cigars at $1 a stick. Top quality brands like Oliva, Romeo y Julieta, and Davidoff. Handpicked just for you and worth over $80. Hit up famouscigars.com/cam and lock in this exclusive deal. While you're there, check out their insane selection of premium cigars, all shipped fresh and fast from their massive 20,000 square foot humidor. That's half a football field. Famous Cigars has been in the game since 1939 and still family owned. So celebrate every win with the folks at Famous. 8 cigars for $8. famouscigars.com/cam.
The Timeline is a Blue Wire podcast.
Ladies and gentlemen, we got him.
Welcome to the Timeline of Phoenix Suns podcast. Sam, it's finally happening. How you doing?
Ask me how I'm doing. I am doing phenomenally well, Mike. Thank you so much for asking. And this is a really big day.
Yeah.
This is a really big day, as big as maybe any day we've had over the past 5 years of doing this podcast. 4 years, 5 years, something like that. And as always, news breaks just before we were about to return to our internal development series tonight.
On hold again.
On hold again for a few more days as just massive news breaks.
Yep, that's right. It was announced today by Robert Sarver that he has plans to sell the Phoenix Suns. Finally, it's funny. This is our 5th season on this podcast, and I myself have thought, wouldn't it be cool if Robert Sarver sold the team while we're covering it, you and I doing this podcast, and it's happening. He had a statement that was whiny and, just blamed other people. But the crux of it was that he, let me find the exact wording. For those reasons, I am beginning the process of seeking buyers for the Suns and Mercury. So with everything that's happened over the course of, what was it, a week and a half, 2 weeks? It hasn't been that long. 2 weeks, I think.
Not even 2 weeks, yep.
Yeah. Robert Sarver has essentially come to the the conclusion, to sell the team and sell the Phoenix Mercury as well, which is, I think, expected if he were to sell the Phoenix Suns. So this is excellent news. Excellent news for the people who work for the team. Excellent news for the players, I think, and excellent news for fans. I think for fans, obviously, there are many reasons to dislike Robert Sarver. This last week and a half gave us a litany, a huge list of other reasons. But Sam, I'll just ask you this first of all. What was your reaction when you saw this news?
I mean, come on, man. We were in the Discord. I think the Discord broke the news to me. I was not on Twitter at the time. And people in there were going insane, and as they should be. I mean, this is it's hard to talk about in a way, Mike, because I do think it's nuanced, right? This is still a delicate situation where we're trying to understand that there were people who were victims here. And so there's a whole side of this that I do still think we have to address, where Robert Sarver walks away from this as still a rich man.
Yeah,
and
of course.
Just because he's no longer in a position where he can hurt these people doesn't mean that it's completely justice for all of those victims. You understand? At the same time, this is as good of an outcome as you could have asked for, in a way, or almost as good of an outcome as you could have asked for if he finally walks away from the organization, something that, truthfully, I don't think most Suns fans thought was possible. Maybe even after the news broke for a while, I don't think people thought it would happen this fast. Mostly because of ego. I thought, the kind of general consensus, as I understood it, was that everyone was saying he's going to clutch onto this for as long as he possibly can. And, maybe eventually he's forced to sell because of public outcry. But this process could take months. And as it turns out, it only took 2 weeks. So
that's right. Less than 2 weeks, yeah.
I was very excited. Don't get it wrong. This is absolutely, I was super excited. This is a day of celebration for Suns fans, I think.
I mean, you can make the case that this is one of the biggest days in Suns history.
Absolutely. I mean, everyone should be happy. It's just also understanding that it is a little bit of a delicate situation at the same time. And I think that's why it's important to bring it all back to the people who really got this started, which, I mean, there's two main groups of people that we have to thank in particular, right? It's on the one hand, the victims who bravely and courageously spoke to the investigators in the first place, gave them the information that they needed in order to conclude that essentially Sarver had no place in the NBA. And also Baxter Holmes for putting out the original article on ESPN over a year ago that kind of got the whole ball rolling and risked his reputation, put his reputation on the line as well in doing so.
Yeah, I do think I mentioned it on our last podcast. I imagine more people will listen to this one than the last one. So just to reiterate it, in the last week since the news came out, I have been in contact with many former Suns employees and even current Suns employees. Two things have been told to me. One, people who spoke to the investigators in some ways regretted what they did in going through it again, living it again, because of what they perceived as a lack of punishment by the NBA or something that just did not go far enough. And the other part I heard about, and this is something I didn't mention in the last podcast, and maybe Sam, you'll be hearing it for the first time. I heard that there were current employees on the Phoenix Suns who were terrified about their future with the Suns because of the news that they heard. I think there were people who worked for the team that were hoping that there was a situation where he could no longer torture them in some ways, and they saw a future with him coming back in just a year, and that is no time at all as far as a career goes. And those people, I think, all probably are taking a moment to smile today. It feels like the first time you can kind of smile about the future of the Phoenix Suns. Of course, there's nobody that's going to come in and fix all of this, and we'll talk about the potential buyers later on in this episode. But just the fact that he can be gone, I think, is a nice moment to just sit back and laugh. And yes, I think thanking those people who spoke, thanking Baxter, and even beyond that, 3 NBA players spoke on the record about this. And honestly, the 3 players that spoke about this is no surprise when thinking about the current state of the NBA. Those 3 players were first LeBron James, second Chris Paul, and between the last episode and this episode, Draymond Green, who spoke about it on his podcast and called on the owners directly to vote on the future of Robert Sarver, which I think a player directly implicating the other owners in this is huge. And I think the way that he worded it, just as carefully as both Chris Paul's and LeBron James's statements were worded, I think Draymond, who tends to shoot from the hip, did it in a very calculated way this time. And those 3 players, I think, put a lot on the line to say those things. And all 3 of them have massive influence. Of course, Chris Paul, longtime player, former
the
NBA
owner
players
killer, as they call him now.
Yeah. By the way, somebody in a group chat told me the Knicks should be trying to trade everything for Chris Paul right now to get rid of their owner, because Chris Paul seems to be the catalyst. In all of these owners leaving. But Chris Paul, longtime All-Star, former president of the Players Union. LeBron James, most influential player in the NBA in his time in the NBA, and then Draymond Green, possibly the most outspoken player on the best team that has existed in the NBA for the past 10 years. So all 3 of those guys speaking out, I think, put the right amount of pressure on everyone involved to do the right thing. And then beyond that, of course, PayPal, who I think did an excellent thing, which is making their statement public. On our last episode, I talked about how public pressure matters, but in this situation, I think private pressure could go a long ways. And we have since found out from Ramona Shelburne on ESPN, she said there was a ton of private pressure from people involved with the league sponsors as a whole. People who maybe didn't want to make a statement to make bigger waves, but did want to put the pressure on the league and other owners to do the right thing privately. And it sounds like that all happened in this last week. So no surprise from me there.
Yeah.
But I think all of those things combined is what led to the conclusion that we're seeing now.
Definitely it was a wave, right? And so it's a combination of all of those things. And look, private pressure is great, and I'm not going to pretend that we ever knew everything that was going on behind the scenes. I do think there's an extra layer of gratitude that's owed when a company actually goes public.
100%.
To be honest.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely. And they were very clear in their statement, too.
Not that, I mean, PayPal, like, I'm not going to lick the boot entirely either. They only went so far. They're not going to break their contract. They simply said that at the end of their contract, they would not renew with the Suns.
Right.
But I thought that was more powerful, frankly, than any sort of behind the scenes pressure that we may have gotten from sponsors. Like, just to call a spade, the rest of the Sun sponsors, we didn't hear anything from them. We got that one statement from Kia because Gerald Bourget, our friend over at PHNX, he reached out to Kia, and then they put out that weak ass statement saying nothing basically. And the rest of the companies obviously did not want to be associated in the same way. They didn't want to get into it, so they just ignored it. And but yeah, so definitely credit to PayPal for being the one who put 2 feet forward publicly. And then also just for the players, man, a certain amount of gratitude. All three of those players, for sure. Chris, we expected a statement from him all along.
Yeah.
But really a certain amount of gratitude is owed here towards LeBron fucking James, because for only 3 players to make a statement in the entire league, and again, I've said before and I will say again, players, especially current Suns players, I don't think they necessarily owed us some sort of statement. I think it's asking a lot of them to go up against their boss. But most players in the NBA kind of were just behind the official spokesperson or statements from the NBA Players Association, but did not want to speak directly. For one of the 3 players who actually spoke directly to be LeBron James,
and
first, with as much sway as he has and as much influence and reach as he has, effectively turning it in, along with, all the sponsor stories on the side and whatever, turning this into a national story that was picked up routinely by non-NBA media around the country. That was huge, and it just played such a massive part in kind of turning this into the avalanche that it became.
Yeah, absolutely. I mentioned it on the last podcast as all of us waiting for the worst person to make a good decision. And ultimately, that is what happened. Robert Sarver, regardless of reasons why, if you want to list it, and I think the way that he sort of blamed it on cancel culture in his statement is a good indication that he doesn't really even believe that he did anything wrong here. Regardless of the reasons why, did come to the proper conclusion here, and I think this is the best thing. I would say, like, it's a day to congratulate Suns fans. Congratulations. This man has not only done all the things that we found out about in the last week, he's also just been a terrible owner of an NBA team for the last 18 years. He took a team that was one of the best teams in the NBA and made them one of the worst teams in the NBA. And at the beginning of that, he was trying to be good. Like, they were making an attempt to be good, and they were just bad at it. We talked about it on the Spaces we did immediately after this news broke. But even just thinking about the fact that he was selling first-round picks while they were a contender is insane. He was a terrible, terrible owner who treated people like crap the entire time that he was working in with any capacity in the Phoenix Suns. And now, congratulations to the fans for getting rid of him. I know I'm happy today. But a special congratulations to any of the employees that currently work there. I imagine it's probably a scary moment where they don't know exactly what's coming next, but ultimately they don't have to worry about it being Robert Sarver, which I think is a huge, huge, huge thing.
So look, there are 2 layers now, 2 specific things we're looking for as we kind of look ahead to who the next owner of the Suns is going to be. And they're 2 very, very different things of different levels of importance. And we kind of covered this last week when we talked about Sarver. It's like, if you're a Suns fan, there's a reason Suns fans have not liked this guy, have disliked this guy for 18 years. All of that changed after the investigation came out, and there were even more. There's a difference between previously disliking Robert Sarver because he was cheap or continued to be cheap versus just being disgusted by kind of the private matters that were leaked in the investigation, right? So 2 things we're looking for in the next owner. most critically here, someone who changes the culture. Because as we also talked about in the spaces, this is not something, this was not one bad actor, as much as the league might want you to feel that way about Robert Sarver. There was a culture of abuse in the Phoenix Suns organization. And so the most critical thing is bringing in an owner who is not going to systematically abuse their employees or put into power other high-level executives who systematically abuse their employees and are
Boy,
potentially...
is the bar on the floor, by the way.
I know.
That's the first thing, but you're right.
That's the
You're
first
absolutely
thing,
right.
and that's the crisis that we are trying to clean up here. Whoever comes in, whoever the next owner is, has a crisis to handle, and they're going to be facing an extra level of media and public scrutiny because of what a disaster this was. This situation was that Sarver created for the Phoenix Suns. So that's the most important thing. Secondary to that, though, and of interest to every single Phoenix Suns fan who wants this basketball team naturally to be as good as possible, is someone with deep pockets who's actually willing to pay luxury tax and field a good roster, and then most importantly stay out of the way and let their general manager and coaching staff do the work that they need to do. In terms of building the best basketball team, that second part is why we previously didn't like Robert Sarver for the previous 18 years, and it's really, really important now that we find someone with deep enough pockets who's willing to just fund the team adequately and get out of the way.
Yep, that's exactly right. As far as NBA owners go, we've made the joke on this podcast that Robert Sarver is a broke boy. He's a broke boy NBA owner. As far as just having the money to properly run an NBA team, he was likely the NBA owner with the least, the lowest net worth of all NBA owners. So I think as far as the NBA is concerned, first of all, I should say, the other owners have to approve any new owner that sells, that whoever Robert Sarver sells the team to. So yes, Robert Sarver will get to choose who he sells the team to, but they have to be approved by the other owners in the NBA. Those owners want money. They want rich guys to be involved in the NBA because those people are able to infuse lots of cash into the NBA. Ultimately, the league's success as a whole affects all of their pockets. They want somebody to be rich. Robert Sarver, I think in some respects, took care of their pockets a little bit in player negotiations, in that he was willing to be the guy that said no to things when it came to actually negotiating with the players in the CBA agreement. I'm not sure they want that this time. I think they want to get done as quickly as possible. So getting someone with a lot of money in there will be important to them. Do you want to talk about the names that have been thrown around so far, Sam?
Yeah, that's fine. We can do it. There are only a few.
The first one is, first of all, we'll cover the two that I think Sam and I have talked about for a year now. And those two are Jam Najafi, and this is not necessarily a guarantee here with Jam Najafi, because Jam Najafi did release a statement, for those of you who missed it, in his statement about all of this, where he asked for Robert Sarver to resign. He did say that he has no intention of becoming the majority owner, basically the managing partner is how he worded it, of the team. Now, one thing I will say in regards to this, Baxter Holmes, once again, who has been incredible throughout this story, did also say that as the managing partner, Robert Sarver can choose to sell the entire team. Basically, he could make a choice to sell everyone else's stakes in the team as well. Does not need their approval to sell the entire team. So while Robert Sarver only owns a percentage of the team, 35% as far as we know, he could still choose to sell 100% of the team. Anyone else who owns a minority stake in the Suns just gets paid out their total stake in that sale. Meaning that Robert Sarver could sell Jam Najafi's stake out of under him, for the record, and all of the other minority owners in this case. So and that matters for a few reasons, which I'll get into in a minute. But the first name is Jam Najafi. Jam Najafi has a net worth of $3.5 billion. Lots more than Robert Sarver. Is a longtime Suns fan, is local to Arizona, and very, I wouldn't say publicly, but very loudly in private, did not want Robert Sarver to own the Phoenix Suns. So he's out there. Maybe he was telling the truth when saying that he had no intention of being the managing partner of the Phoenix Suns going forward. Maybe he meant, actually, I want to own the whole team outright. But I've postulated that him making a point of saying that he had no intention of being the managing partner in that particular statement was important. Otherwise, I think it would have undercut the rest of what he said, which was a thank you, what I could perceive as a sincere thank you to the people who spoke out, and a call for Robert Sarver to resign. If all of that is now perceived as an attempt for like mutiny, basically, I think it undercuts everything else he said. So just adding to that statement that he did not want to be the managing partner, I think helped with that statement overall. We could take it at face value or not, whatever you want to do. John Najafi seems to want to own the Suns and has the money to do it. I think that's probably the best way to put that, right?
Yeah, I mean, it depends if you want to take his words at face value there or not. I certainly think I would say it's 50-50, to be honest with you. He has the money to do it. He has deep connections to the Suns. I certainly believe he wants to stay. He doesn't want his stake sold out from under him and to, leave the organization, right? He will continue to be involved with the organization in some way. That's my belief for sure. It's just a question of if he actually wants to be the guy. I think it could go either way.
Okay, the other guy is Bob Iger, former CEO of the Disney Corporation. Have you heard of him? Have you heard of him?
You may have heard of him, yeah.
Yeah. So he's out there, right? He has the ability to purchase an NBA team. I think if Robert Sarver sells his 35% stake, decides not to sell the entirety of the team, which I'll say why I think it's more likely he sells the whole team in just a second. But if he were to sell his 35% stake, that's the type of thing where Bob Iger, who has a listed net worth of $690 million, could purchase that amount.
Still broke. Broke boy.
Still broke. Yeah, broke boy by NBA owner standards.
By NBA owner standards, yeah.
But he could take over Robert Sarver's stake pretty easily. By the way, Bob Iger also could head an ownership group with a lot of other money people.
Yes.
That could purchase the Phoenix Suns. All of these people, in fact, could do that. Nobody has to buy the team outright.
Right.
Most teams are purchased by ownership groups.
And that's why, the numbers only matter so much. But we do bring up the numbers because until we have better knowledge about if these guys are approaching it from a group standpoint or if they're going solo, all we have to go on is their individual net worth numbers. And just to be very clear for people, Forbes' most recent valuation of the Phoenix Suns was last season, where they pegged the Suns as the 18th most valuable NBA franchise with a valuation of $1.8 billion.
Yep.
Meanwhile, though, a year later, Brian Windhorst is out here saying that they're going to sell for $2.5.
Yeah, and Ramona Shelburne.
Billies.
Ramona Shelburne on ESPN today said they could go for $3 billion, they could go for $4 billion. She just very casually went from $3 to $4 billion. Like, I can't even believe hearing that.
$4 billion to me feels like it's not quite New York Knicks, LA Lakers, Golden State Warriors territory, but 100%. It's right beneath those three. And I don't think the Suns are. I think the Suns are valuable. I don't think they're a $4 billion franchise.
Can you though? There is some element of maybe the Suns are a sleeping giant, though, right? Because it's hard to really quantify the damage that having one of the worst owners, if not the worst owner in the NBA for the past 18 years, has done to their overall value. Now, something Woj tweeted about through all of this, Woj, who has also been great throughout this, I think, because he clearly does not like Robert Sarver. He said the Suns are considered an extremely desirable franchise in the marketplace and will have no shortage of high-level ownership candidates. As a warm-weather destination in the West, league executives always believed this could be a monster free agent destination with the right ownership.
I mean, so he's just tickling Suns fans there. I mean, it's just tantalizing.
It's hilarious. Yeah. But I do think that when you're talking about valuation, $3 or $4 billion, it's not necessarily about what the Suns are worth as far as the total amount of profits that they can net. There is a club of 30 teams, and if you want into that club, if you want to own one of those teams, you have to buy one of those 30 teams. And when they're on sale, the prices are jacked up just based on the limited quantity of teams that exist. And now we'll get into some other names, and I think this is why you could potentially see it going closer to $3 billion. Here's some names that have been thrown out of people who have attempted to buy NBA teams recently or have some level of ownership stake in NBA teams currently. The first one is Mackenzie Scott. Do you know who Mackenzie Scott is?
That's say it to me, but I think I know. Yeah,
it's Jeffrey Bezos's ex-wife,
his ex-wife, the philanthropist ex-wife, correct?
Who is worth $37 billion approximately. Now, when we're talking about Robert Sarver either selling his stake in the Suns at 35% or selling the total net worth of the team and selling it out from under all the minority owners, when you have people like Mackenzie Scott potentially interested, and we're going to talk about some more obscenely rich people in just a second, those people probably want to own the whole team. And when they want to own the whole team, they're going to throw a large number at you, and that large number will probably encourage you to sell the entirety of the team rather than just your 35% stake. Because I'm not sure somebody like Mackenzie Scott, who's worth almost $40 billion, would be interested in owning 35% of the team when she could so easily own 100% of a team based on her total net worth.
Right. I mean, for her, there is really very little difference between $1 billion and $3 billion, right?
Yeah.
Right. So, which is absurd to think about, but
yeah, absolutely. It's a very small percentage of her overall net worth. That's just the way. I mean, it's obscene. But that's the truth of the matter. She could potentially buy the team outright, and I think somebody like her or another person, Phil Knight. Phil Knight he basically owns Nike. I don't know how else to describe Phil Knight, but. Phil Knight has attempted, both Mackenzie Scott and Phil Knight were supposedly involved in attempting to buy the Portland Trailblazers in the past, and I think Phil Knight particularly attached to Oregon, so probably wants to own a team in Oregon, but he's worth over $40 billion as well. This man's very, very rich and could buy a team outright. If he's interested in buying a team, I think he could buy the Suns. I think there's a chance that somebody like Phil Knight, who's very attached to where he's from, will more likely wait for the Portland Trailblazers to be available to sell, which people suspect that it might be. He submitted an offer like a few months ago to the Portland Trailblazers to try and purchase them, which was declined.
I would point out the interesting thing about the market right now, and again, I'm not gonna focus too much on what the exact prices are, because the higher the bidders go, the more of a win that is for Robert Sarver, more so than any particular Suns fan. So it's not like I feel a certain type of way towards it, just in my personal feelings as a Suns fan, right? But the reason the market is a little bit interesting is because expansion is coming, and so for someone like Phil Knight, you also have to wonder if he sees a Seattle team on the near horizon, like as soon as 2024, 2025, that he could get in on. Being able to revive the Sonics. There could be a team in Vegas within a few years, like. This is not a pipe dream anymore. Adam Silver is on the record that the league wants expansion, and I think it's going to be within the next 5 years, we're going to have 32 NBA teams. So, yes, there is an opening right now, and openings don't come around all that often to be in the exclusive club. But if you also see these other two opportunities coming up soon in two other yet-to-be-named markets, but I think we have a good guess at what they're going to be. We have a good idea.
And there's another person I think that should be mentioned in that when you're talking about Seattle, because Ramona Shelburne also listed a few names on ESPN recently. These are all directly from her. By the way, for people who don't remember, Ramona Shelburne was heavily involved with covering the Donald Sterling story when it happened, and also did the amazing podcast. If you haven't heard the full podcast, I think it's called the Sterling Tapes. It's fascinating, and she hosts it, and it's very good. But she does a lot of reporting on NBA owners as a result. So she does have some connections in this. And Ramona in general probably has a lot of connections in the NBA. The names that she threw out, and I think pertaining to Seattle, Bezos, he's a CEO, entrepreneur, born in 1964.
Doesn't ring a bell.
The richest person on the planet.
Yeah, carries a lot of, if we're
the
talking
richest
about
person
it for the
ever.
Suns.
I think.
No, is he still the richest in the U.S. by net worth?
I think so. Yeah.
Musk passed him at one point, but did he lose the spot again?
I think so. I think
Okay.
Bezos has.
Could be probably because Tesla stock tanked a little bit. Yeah. Look, he comes with baggage, right? It's not exactly the.
They all do.
I know they all do, and I know there's no perfect billionaire, right?
Yeah.
but no, Jesus Christ.
None of the there's two names here that are not overly exciting for me, other than at least the rich. Like at some point, it sucks to even say it like that, but like they're all going to be rich. But like these, like Bezos is so rich that he could invest $5 billion into the Suns, and it would be no problem. I mentioned it to you on our spaces, but Jeff Bezos could literally buy the Suns outright and still spend less on that than he did on the Lord of the Rings TV show. Yeah. The Lord of the Rings TV show will cost more than the Phoenix Suns. And you're talking about pet projects. He just did that because he wanted to. They didn't have to make a Lord of the Rings TV show. That's how much money he has.
Say what you will about Bezos. Look, there would be a lot of baggage. I think it would be a tough sell in terms of PR image. Yeah. But yes, if you're talking about deep pockets, there is no one with deeper pockets. He could pay the Suns luxury tax, and then as a favor, he could pay every other owner's luxury tax combined. He could
buy the league twice over. The entire league.
He could say every single season, Golden State Warriors, whoever the owner is over there, I forget, Bob
Latham.
Myers. We don't care. Like, if here, I'll pay your $500 million luxury tax tab just to be nice. And then for the Suns, I'll one-up you, and we're going to have a $1 billion luxury tax payment to the league because we're going to do something ridiculous. I mean, there would be no limits with a guy like that, truly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he's out there, and I think he built an arena in Seattle. It seems like he wants to own a team in Seattle. So I think if the NBA ends up in Seattle, I think that could be him. So we'll see if he's interested in purchasing the Suns or if he wants to wait for a team in Seattle. Someone like Bezos probably already has the inside track on knowing whether or not a team will exist in Seattle and if he could purchase it right away. Lorraine Jobs, which is Steve Jobs' wife. Widow? I don't know. That's a weird word to use. I don't know if I like using that one. But she's also very rich. I don't know much about her other than she appears to give a lot of money away.
Why is she in the conversation? Who brought her up? Ramona?
Ramona did, yeah. Huh. And I think she is part of the ownership group of the Washington Wizards, if I'm not mistaken. And this is actually a relatively normal thing in the NBA where people who want to purchase an NBA team outright and just own it will often join the ownership group of other teams just to get in the good graces of the other owners and then attempt to purchase a team. This is what Joe Lacob did, by the way. Joe Lacob wanted to purchase a team. David Stern at the time encouraged him to buy a smaller stake of the Boston Celtics. He was a minority owner of the Boston Celtics. Once the Warriors were up for sale, he sold a stake in the Celtics and purchased the Warriors outright. Now he's the owner of the Warriors. So this path, which I'll mention somebody else in a second that could take that path, is a relatively normal thing as far as NBA owners go. And somebody like Lorraine Jobs could potentially own the team. She's worth about $12 billion according to Google. This is all Google information, by the way. I don't know these people's net worth in reality. It's probably very difficult to calculate. But she's got a lot of money, and she appears to be interested in purchasing an NBA team. So that's somebody that Ramona Shelburne mentioned as well.
Yeah, look, these are certainly all names with super deep pockets and I think are a little bit more high profile and would catch more eyes. I wouldn't rule out that there could be complete wild cards, though, that come from the side. I mean, we were doing a cursory Google search. I'm not going to read out these names here because I have no inside information on any of this. But we did a cursory Google. I mean, Arizona, there's about a dozen billionaires in Arizona. Maybe it could be someone local who, is just going to kind of come out of left field and be a little bit more unexpected. But yeah, it could be anyone.
Yeah. I think she's an interesting one. Has a woman ever purchased an NBA? I know there's multiple women that own NBA teams.
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't know well enough the history.
Yeah, it's just an interesting thought. The idea of Robert Sarver selling to a woman is exciting to me after all of the garbage he put women through. So that's just something that's out there that she could be. The last one is Larry Ellison, the former CEO of Oracle. Not a billionaire with a great reputation, has a lot of money. Larry Ellison has attempted to purchase the Warriors, I think, more than once, and appears to still want to own an NBA team. Not sure if Phoenix is the destination he wants, but Larry Ellison is out there, and that's another name mentioned by Ramona. Any thoughts on Larry Ellison?
No particular thoughts. I mean, I'm having general thoughts as you bring up these names of should Suns fans, because I think it's a natural question to have, the whole Silicon Valley tech billionaire coming in from the outside versus why can't it be someone local, right? I don't think there's any fear, no matter who it is, of relocation, right? Mm-hmm. So if we could put people's fears, if those fears do exist, if we could put those at ease, no matter who comes in, even if Phoenix is not their ultimate number one destination, say they wanted to own a team in Seattle or San Francisco or whatever, the Phoenix Suns are here to stay. They have a rich history of 50 plus years in the Valley, and as you know, you pointed
a contract with the city for the arena,
of course. And as you pointed out, you know, from Woj, like an attractive destination as a city in their own right. So, you know, I don't think that's necessarily a consideration with any of these people, even if they come from the outside. I have no particular specific thoughts on Larry Ellison, though.
Yep. He seems like he sucks, I'll be honest. Based on the way people have reacted.
Yeah, and
that.
that's, I mean, I guess that's the thing.
Him, yeah.
You know, the enemy you know versus the enemy you don't is kind of comes into play with all of these people, right?
Yeah.
Like, we're not expecting... These are, I mean, how do I say it, dude? Like, these are billionaires, you know, like you're not
but
expecting
would you
these
rather
people
have a young billionaire or an old billionaire? This is kind of a weird thing to say, but you know, like I would rather
have a billionaire with, you know, they don't have to be the best person on the planet, I guess, but like they need to have a decent track record of, I don't know. I mean, the thing is, like, are any of these people motivated by like doing the right thing out of the good of their heart? No, they're motivated to do the right thing because it presents good PR. So I think the best case scenario, the best thing that you could hope for is someone who recognizes the value of good PR enough to have a decent track record and to cover their own shit. Like, I'm not.
This is the most cynical podcast, I think. When
everyone,
you're
should
right.
Be,
you're
everyone
right.
should wait. Okay, let me try and specify what I'm trying to say a little bit. Everyone should be excited.
Absolutely right.
Everyone should be excited today, regardless. It's just we shouldn't expect the next person coming in to be amazing. You know, and to be able to clean up everything about this organization. Again, out of the good of their own heart. They're doing it because there is a financial incentive to do so, right? I'm
gonna mention someone. This is from Dylan on the Discord. His name's Joe Gebbia. Forgive me if I'm mispronouncing that. I think it's Italian. I'm sure there's a way to pronounce that that's much better than I just did. He's the co-founder of Airbnb. And he is very rich, $7 billion. Not like Bezos rich. Of course, nobody is. But extremely, extremely rich is Joseph Gebbia, and he also was a former ball boy for the Atlanta Hawks. He currently is a minority owner of the San Antonio Spurs and is somebody who does a lot of work helping refugees and refugee relief. He even went to the Met Gala and brought a North Korean refugee as his guest to the Met Gala just to bring more attention to refugees coming from North Korea. He is somebody who seems to be a massive basketball fan and is somebody who purchased a minority stake in a team that I think would likely want to own a team outright. You know, it's just one of these guys who's extremely rich and is a massive basketball fan. And these guys tend to want to buy NBA teams. So he's just a name out there. I would feel bad if I didn't mention him because we were talking about him on the Discord today. No news of him being interested. This is all speculation just based on the path that Joe Lacob took to be an owner of the Warriors, which is essentially own a minority stake in a team and then sort of transition that into buying a team outright. So that's another name out there.
Just give me someone who's an authentic basketball fan but doesn't, you know, without the overinflated ego, without the overestimation of their own abilities to build a basketball team. Just, you're here. We want you for your money. And then get out of the way and let James Jones do his work, essentially. That's the goal. And, you know, ideally do not be a terrible person and do not continue to abuse employees. That's also number
I wonder
one.
If the NBA will continue that 3 years in monitoring the Suns, even if Robert Sarver is gone. I kind of hope they do.
I hope they do. I will say, even if they don't, and I do think they should, Baxter Holmes is going to follow up. He's a dog. I mean, after like Baxter Holmes really earned like he again should be commended for all of his work here. Like, did you know Baxter Holmes' name before this story?
Yes, I had heard of him.
Did you? Okay, all right. You're just gonna
but
lie.
Definitely
to
did
people
not
on the
think
podcast. No, I'm kidding. I did not know Baxter Holmes' name before this story, and now I'll never forget Baxter Holmes' name. I was joking on Twitter. They should name the arena after him.
The Baxter home, yeah.
The Baxter's home, if you will. But, I mean, he's going to follow up on this story. Yeah. He's going to follow up on this story because this was one of the biggest stories of his career.
Ultimately, the Phoenix Suns are a team that made the finals two seasons ago, is in the playoffs now, has a young superstar in Devin Booker signed long term, has DeAndre Ayton, has Mikal Bridges, will likely extend Cameron Johnson, currently has Chris Paul on the team, and has a future, lots of assets. They also have Monty Williams signed long term. They also have James Jones, not sure about his contract, but one of the better general managers, has won Executive of the Year in the past. They also have a newly remodeled arena and a brand new practice facility. This team should be an attractive team for an owner to purchase.
All of the groundwork is laid in terms of infrastructure and investment. Like, you don't have to come here. It's a pretty, as close as it gets with NBA teams to a finished product, right? The only thing that they do not have is the championship ring. But everything else,
and a good owner. Yeah.
Well, yeah, but obviously the new owner will be coming in. Everything else is already laid out for you. It should be. I mean, this is easy. This should be a walk in the park.
It's nice to know that if they do win a championship, that Robert Sarver will not be involved going forward, right?
Yeah, I mean that he will not be the first one making the speech at the championship parade, or when Adam Silver hands out the trophy after Game 7 in the finals or whatever. Yeah, that's great.
Okay. Do you have, let's see, obviously I'll say we're going to cover this going forward, right? There's going to be a lot more to this story.
Yeah.
Potential owners, how much the team is sold for, what happens after the ownership takes over, how soon does it happen? It could happen as early as a week from now, I think the most likely scenario is it takes a few months, but likely during the season, we're probably going to find out.
Yeah, I think Ramona said earlier today that she sees it as a process that likely drags out months, and that seems logical to me. So I'm prepared for several updates to come out throughout the course of the season, essentially. This is by no means the end, but it is the beginning of the end of the saga.
We've talked about it, you and I talked about it, and I was struggling with when to talk about basketball again. I think it was a complicated scenario for us who cover the team, people sending me messages of support who were employees of the team, and I didn't want to be the person that moved on too quickly from this. But I do think now we sort of have the ability of talking about basketball. There's a couple things I just want to mention since we're on this podcast now that Brian Windhorst talked about, and even a player that was signed on the Suns. Do you want to talk about that real quick, Sam, before we end this episode?
Yeah, sure. We can cover the stuff that happened this week in terms of basketball. Yeah, that's fine.
The Suns signed a player, Frank Jackson, a guard who played for the Detroit Pistons in the past, and to a non-guaranteed deal for this year. Do you have initial thoughts on Frank Jackson? It's funny because he's like a second round pick picked like early in the second round in 2017. And yeah, he's on the Suns now.
I'm sorry, but what a funny transition. I know you prepared.
Yeah, I mean, it's a new player.
There's definitely at least a couple of listeners who kind of like they spaced out for the past 30 seconds and just came to again. And are they talking about Frank Jackson now? Yeah.
He's not worth enough to buy the team. Sorry, guys.
He's not worth enough to buy the team. Look, the Suns have an open roster spot. I think this is more likely just a training camp deal, and then we'll see. Mm-hmm. I don't have any particular expectations of Frank Jackson. I do like the fact that he has actual tangible NBA experience. In fact, 4 years of it, even if it's on mostly
18 minutes a game too.
Poor middling teams such as the Detroit Pistons for the past 2 years. Frank Jackson is an interesting player in that he is the size of a point guard, but without many of the skills of one. So I think he kind of fills what is a diminishing archetype in the NBA, which is that of the undersized combo guard.
Career average 1 assist per game.
Right. Anytime you see a guy who's listed as a point guard with a career average of 1 assist per game
in 18 minutes,
some alarm bells go off. He's kind of a guy who's going to be more like 6'2", 6'3", but really needs to play shooting guard and hit spot up threes in order to survive. And so, what are the real odds of him making a huge impact here? I don't think they're great, but I'm down to give him a shot. At the very least, like, they need bodies for training camp, and for a while it felt like they were just putting off signing anyone. So I would expect another string of signings over the next week or two for the Suns, just to bring guys into camp and work them out, and allow all of their guaranteed contracts to get as much practice as possible.
My first reaction was, oh, interesting. I wonder if that could be because they know a trade's coming. And then the next thing we heard was from Brian Windhorst, who just kind of did a notebook dump on ESPN about the Suns. He just kind of said everything he knows about the Suns in one segment on NBA Today, in which he said that Jay Crowder the Suns are shopping him. The Suns are out there trying to trade Jay Crowder right now. He mentioned that they spoke to the Utah Jazz about Bojan Bogdanovic. He also said the Suns are not operating as a team that's attempting to save money. They're even potentially willing to take on money in a trade with Jay Crowder, so not necessarily lose money in that trade, but take on a higher salary. You can take about 25% more than what he makes. And mentioned that Cameron Johnson extension talks are ongoing, which is just so much from Brian Windhorst in one single segment. But I think the first thing we should talk about is Jay Crowder. The Suns appear to be attempting to trade Jay Crowder. We talked about it on previous episodes. We sort of had the conversation of, does Jay Crowder start the season on the Suns, and does Jay Crowder make it past the trade deadline? We both kind of agreed that he wouldn't make it past the trade deadline. I kind of thought that he might be traded before the season, and I think right now we're seeing that they're trying to trade him before the season. I don't necessarily means that they definitely will, but they appear to be trying to trade him right now. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's not super new information in that it's kind of been an open secret that he's wanted out, right? Yeah. And I think anyone who is reading the tea leaves for the past several weeks probably understands that he put in a trade request weeks ago with the Suns. Mm-hmm. And like that information is only coming to light now, but I have every reason to believe that James Jones has been presented with this information for a while, and he's been trying to deal with the cards he's been dealt. But it's difficult to make trades with this little time left in the offseason. And so for that reason, I'm not sure I've necessarily budged from my position that Jay Crowder could start the season with the Suns and then be moved in December, around December 15th, once trades once it starts to be easier, once guys who recently signed contracts can be traded and teams have started to identify more glaring holes in their roster. At the same time, he very easily could be traded to the Utah Jazz for Bojan Bogdanovic in the next 2 weeks, maybe as part of some sort of 3-team deal where Jay goes to a team that's actually trying to compete. But it's just your options feel limited with him right now, so I wouldn't say it's a guarantee.
Yeah, there was a rumor that the Philadelphia 76ers are potentially interested in Jay Crowder, which it's actually pretty hard to come up with a potential trade with the 76ers that makes sense for the Suns when getting rid of Jay Crowder.
Outright, right. It is, outright. You're talking about Matisse Thybulle, who's a really interesting player, but just not much of a playoff contributor. Right. And,
I know who they want to get rid of. It's Tobias Harris.
They can't. We can't take Tobias Harris. Yeah,
there's just no way.
The package with Philly is like Matisse Thybulle and George Niang, which is garbage for the Suns. That's a bad package. Now, if you could send those pieces, if Utah wants those pieces, and then Philly gets Jay Crowder and we get Bojan somehow, and I haven't worked out all of the exact math there for how to make that work.
Or if there's a way, because there's a scenario where the Suns need a little extra salary in order to get Bojan Bogdanovic, and that could mean Cameron Payne goes out in a deal. So if there's a way that Jay Crowder ends up getting sort of moved to a third team, if the Suns can get some sort of viable backup point guard from that third team, not necessarily that the 76ers have that, but I think that's a scenario where the Suns could be looking for that. Based on my understanding, I would say that the Suns are not overly committed to Cameron Payne. And as we've talked about on this podcast, they probably shouldn't be overly committed to Cameron Payne going forward. Mm-hmm. And just even an average point guard, I think, is that makes Cameron Payne relatively replaceable. We talked about Bojan, but I mean, he's a guy. One thing I'll mention about Bojan, if you're trying to do a trade, I've said this in the past for Bojan, it's hard because you can't do Jay Crowder and Torrey Craig. If you could do Jay Crowder and Torrey Craig, there's a chance it might be done already. I do think the Jazz want a first-round pick. That seems to be all they want right now is first-round picks. So whether or not the Suns are willing to do that, I think the likelihood of them being willing to trade this year's coming first-round pick is probably relatively high, being that they could still potentially have the best record in the league at the end of this year. That's not the most valuable first-round pick. So I think maybe they could consider that for Bojan Bogdanovic. I don't think they would probably go anywhere beyond this year just to not risk anything in the future. But it's hard to come up with the trade that makes sense for Bojan. Like, do you want to trade Dario Saric? Now, what if Šarić sucks this year? Maybe it's a good idea to capitalize on Šarić before people know how he's going to play this year. Maybe it's a bad idea.
Yeah,
Maybe he is the guy who unlocks everyone. It's hard to really know.
Dario's not at a point in his career right now, especially, I'm just going to be honest, based on what I saw in Eurobasket, because I did watch several of his games quite closely. Like, whether or not you have to include Dario doesn't nix a deal for me right now.
Right.
He's just... he's
specifically for Bojan.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even like Bojan that much. He's just,
I get it. No, I kind of get that based on...
Did you watch any of the Croatia games? I forget or did you see the highlights at least? Like, Bojan looked significantly better than Dario. They played on the same team.
Yeah.
And I don't blame Dario for this. We've talked about this, I think, on a Patreon episode, so I'm not sure if we've had this conversation on the main feed, but like, I understand we need to give Dario time. That's fine. But if we're giving Dario time, then we can't also bill him as like the catalyst for change who, like, getting Dario back is going to be the reason that we improve this year. Like, I know it's a meme to say he unlocks everyone, but he's not actually preventing a deal from happening if I were in charge. That's all.
Yeah. No, I think that's fair. I think that's fair. There is not a ton of time for them to make trades. You know, the season's coming relatively soon, so if they're going to do something, they probably want to do it relatively soon in order to actually make a trade that's legal. So we'll see if that happens pretty soon. Obviously, we'll be around to cover that if they do make a trade. I don't know. It's tough to imagine a scenario where Jay Crowder comes back this season at this point based on, first of all, he clearly asked out. The Suns seem to be content starting Cameron Johnson. And if we're getting to the extension talks of Cameron Johnson, if he's going to be paid like a starter, which I think he is, like, I think he'll probably get like $17-18 million a year, maybe more. You got to start him. I mean, you should probably at that point. Well, and Jay Crowder's not happy. And now we know that the Suns are out there trying to trade Jay Crowder. Like, that's a lot to bring him back after all of this.
Can we address the elephant in the room with Cam Johnson real quick before we wrap up? Sure. Windhorst put out this report, it was yesterday. It was before the Sarver news today. Mm-hmm. So, like, what's to say that today's news has not stalled those discussions with Cam Johnson, and now they're no longer able to commit to him?
Well, I mean, like, why wouldn't they be, though? You know, like, I mean, maybe you're saying that maybe they just can't. Or
I mean, it's gonna push up their luxury tax bill at least a little bit
next year.
Yeah, it's not a this year thing. So that's
the interesting thing about this specific extension talks, right? Because it's like you're signing an extension that essentially has to be approved by Robert Sarver or whoever his puppet is in there, and that person who approves it, Robert Sarver or his puppet, will not be the person footing the bill, most likely, on that. So, like, why would they not do it?
Yeah, and you know what? I mean, the people who are about to engage in a bidding war for the Suns,
they can afford it.
Exactly. Like, the difference between if the team is going to go for $2.5 or $3 billion is much more important to them than the conversation of your luxury tax payment with Cam Johnson is going to be $10 million more.
And to be honest, I think having more good players under contract probably makes the team more valuable to them as well. Rather than not having more good players under contract or having a scenario where they go into restricted free agency right when you buy the team. That could set up an owner for a complicated offseason immediately after that. But yeah, that's October. Early October is the last day to sign extensions for NBA players. So they have a little bit of time to do that. And in the past, they have done that with players. You know, every time Devin Booker was eligible for an extension, it was announced the minute extensions were allowed to be announced. But in the past, other players that have been extended in the past were later in the offseason. And it's relatively normal for players to agree to extensions pretty late in the offseason if they're not stars. So we'll see if that ends up happening with Cameron Johnson. I do think, just as you mentioned, it's an interesting situation. We don't really know which way it affects it. If, I just don't see a scenario where they would want to shed salary, because, like, why? Who's going to pay for it? I don't know. Maybe I don't fully understand the process here, but it's just not a bill that they're going to foot. So why not just give him the extension and then move on from there?
I certainly hope so.
Yep. Let's see. And that's all we got. I mean, I think those are some interesting rumors from Windhorst, and we're going to see if anything more comes out of that. Obviously, more news about this Robert Sarver thing will come up soon. It might take a while, though. It might be a few weeks. I imagine we're going to hear some names pretty soon, some sourced names of people who are interested, and then we'll all argue about who those best options are going forward. You got anything else before we go?
Yeah, look, again, this is a good day to be a Suns fan. It's not the perfect outcome, and we can split hairs over the fact that it's not like Robert Sarver still walks away a very rich man at the end of this sale, but ultimately he's doing something partially because of you guys, because of public outcry.
Yeah.
He's being forced to do something that he did not want to do. That is a victory. And it's not the perfect victory, but it is a victory regardless. And I think it's important to celebrate those victories when they come, because it's not every day that you get a victory like this. So enjoy it. And yes, we'll be here to cover all the updates as they come.
Absolutely, and we appreciate you guys for your support during this. People that sent me messages thanking us too. We appreciate. We're doing our best covering this, so we appreciate those messages of support as well. We'll be back soon if there's a trade, very soon. If not, probably early next week. Thanks, guys.
Why is everyone so serious? This is amazing. He's gone. This is awesome. I think this is the best thing that could happen to this league. And let me say this. As a Phoenix person, and everybody on this panel, and I've always represented the Phoenix very, very heavily. Do you know what else I am? I'm a University of Arizona person. Do you know where Sarver went to school? University of Arizona. I have sat next to him on a plane. Lute Olson, my grandfather, is one of the people that helped get this man into this league. All of those things said, he is a part of a fraternity and a family that I belong to, and I could not be happier to see that man walking out of the door. Why? Because even though I did not have these experiences, I had close friends that did. I had people that were around this organization inside of the Phoenix Suns and the Mercury organization that did. And so for me, even though these weren't my experiences, I am so happy that this man is gone. He does not belong in this league. He doesn't belong around people in this league. And so for me today, this is a joyous occasion. I'm about to put a bid on the Suns. I'm probably going to fall a few dollars short, but I'm definitely putting in a bid.
For over a century, Johnny Walker has shared its bold spirit with the game of golf. Now, crafted with Devereaux Golf, Johnny Walker introduces the Johnny Walker Blue Label-inspired Sunday Golf Bag, elevating the game with sleek design, Blue Label hues, and refined gold accents. Celebrate your hole-in-one with a premium Sunday bag crafted by Devereaux Golf. Submit proof of your achievement to johnnywalker.com/blue-in-1. Please drink responsibly.